Did you know that well over half of all advertising simply does not work? Well, in this short video, I'm going to show you why that is the case and what you can do about it to make sure that you maximize return on investment from all of your marketing and advertising. My name is Carl Craig West and I'm the founder of the Auckland Marketing Club, which is part of Auckland Business Builders. You can check it out at www.aucklandbusinessbuilders.co.nz. And remember, if you like this video, click on the subscribe button. It'd be great to have you as a follower. If you enable notifications, if you're on YouTube, they'll let you know when we make one of these videos, which is roughly once a week. Okay. You may never have heard of a guy called Charles Schwab. Now, Charles Schwab was an investment banker, very, very wealthy, very successful guy. And allegedly, according to legend, so to speak, he came up with the phrase, over half of my marketing doesn't work. The problem is, I don't know which half. Now, in today's technological world, there is no excuse for not knowing whether your advertising really works, because almost all advertising, especially online advertising, is trackable. But there are a number of reasons why most advertising doesn't work. And I'm just going to quickly touch on them for you now. And I'm going to give you some examples because I've seen this with my own eyes. First of all, many people target the wrong audience. Now, I've laboured on this before. I've got a bunch of it. And I'll share a video with you down below on why knowing your audience is very, very important. Because if you're targeting the wrong people, of course your advertising and your marketing isn't going to work because they're never likely to buy. And so a good example was in Boots Chemist in the UK, which everybody in the UK will know who that is. If you're in New Zealand, it's a kind of a UK equivalent of the Chemist Warehouse. I went there a few years ago and they gave me a discount voucher for makeup. Now, I've not worn makeup since the 1980s. I'm definitely not their target market, and I'm definitely not likely to do anything other with this bit of paper than chuck it straight in the bin. Now, if they'd given me a discount voucher for men's grooming products on the other side of the bit of paper, that would have made perfect sense. Maybe I would have been interested, largely because makeup is not my thing anymore. Now, the interesting thing is, this is a multi-million pound, I mean, goodness knows how many hundreds of millions this company turns over, and they're still getting it wrong. Okay, so that kind of gives you hope if you're a small business and you're getting it wrong. These guys really ought to know better. They've got thinking marketing departments, dozens, if not 100 people in marketing to do this stuff, and they made a very simple error by not targeting the right market. And that brings me on to the next point with the right broadcast, boast or brag or message, as some people call it. So they put an ad in front of me that was badly targeted. It had the wrong message on it. In other words, I'm not interested in makeup. Now, the message is a biggie. If you understand your audience, you'll understand what frustrations they have, what problems you solve, what enhancements you bring to their life. And that's the message you need to get across. But it all starts with your audience, because you can't get a decent broadcast or brag in front of these people or message if you don't fully understand your audience. And that's where audience is always key. In my experience, most marketing fails because it's badly targeted, not touching, aimed at, trying to reach the right people. But the broadcast is what it is you say to them. And this is the bit where you put you front and center saying, we can do X, which means Y for you. And this is why it's good. And the last one is channels. Now, channels are very interesting. This is literally the methods that you use to get across. That could be sending stuff out on postcards. That could be social media, could be advertising, wherever that paid advertising, wherever that goes, could be pay-per-click, could be email marketing, could be going to networking events, could be running billboard campaigns, etc., leafleting. All of these things are channels. And again, if you're trying to reach a certain audience, you need to make sure that the channels work. The channels are the ones that most used or most responded to by your target audience. And I used the example of a hairdresser trying to advertise and market themselves on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a business-to-business channel. I'll be willing to bet nearly nobody does a search on LinkedIn looking for a hairdresser. However, Facebook is a consumer channel. So it makes absolute sense for a hairdresser, a small local hairdresser, to be all over Facebook. Same thing with somebody trying to sell websites. I used to sell websites. I now sell marketing services. Using Facebook is going to have a limited reach until I start spending some money. Facebook want businesses to spend some money to reach people, in which case it can be very effective. But LinkedIn is a much better bet for me. Why? Because my target audience is right there day in, day out. So it makes sense for me to use LinkedIn as a social media as opposed to Facebook. And that's where I typically spend a lot more time. Also go to networking events. Again, a hairdresser will have a limited reach. Going to networking events. If you sell sweets, for example, going to networking events again would have a limited reach. However, I've got a client who sells sweets who does incredibly well on Instagram and TikTok. Those two channels, consumer channels, work incredibly well. Again, LinkedIn, going to networking events, doing trade shows, for example, would have limited reach. So the key thing is this, the number one reason why, in my view, why most marketing doesn't work, most advertising doesn't work, is because it's badly targeted. Now, I saw some advertising on Facebook aimed at me, put in front of me, from a company that I did not recognize, and it was telling me to, this was in December, it was telling me to sign up in January. The problem is they didn't tell me who they were, they didn't tell me where they were, they didn't tell me what their product offering or service was. It just assumed that I would recognize the company name, which is to some extent marketing mistake number one. And I'm telling you, none of this advertising will have worked. If they got the response would have been tiny. They're making the assumption that people would know who they are. I had no idea, and I'd be willing to bet that most of the people they put the ad in front of had no idea as well. And to some extent, you can call it arrogant. To think, oh, well, we're here, everybody knows who we are. No, they don't. Don't make that assumption. And to some extent, your company name or your what you call yourselves is less important than the message you put in front of your target audience. But they just put this ad in front of me. It just said, sign up for January. Sign up to what? And why? Who the heck are you? So it turns out that obviously they caught on to this reasonably quickly, because I started seeing ads from the same organisation. It was the gym. Funnily enough, the gym that they were advertising was on the far side of the city. It was nearly an hour's drive away from where I live. So again, they got it wrong, badly targeting, not understanding their audience, because there are not many people, in my experience, will drive an hour to go to a gym. If it was 15 minutes around the corner, maybe I'd consider it, but certainly not on the other side of the city. Makes no sense whatsoever. So they had obviously spotted something, and they had obviously improved, which is good. But sadly, a lot of people don't. So the point I'm trying to make is this. If your advertising isn't working, if your marketing isn't working, you need to look at your ABCs. Always come back to your audience. Are we trying to reach the right people? Do we know enough about these people to reach them effectively? Do we know enough about these people to know what problems we're solving or what enhancements we're bringing to their life or their business? And this is the kind of stuff that you need to put across to them. But it always starts with audience. The next thing, like I said, is just your boast. What messaging are we getting across to these people? What are we putting in front of them that's going to make a difference? Don't just tell me to sign up. Sign up to what? I've seen advertising aimed at me for women-only gym. Now, to be honest, whilst as a bloke that might seem appealing to some extent, I'm never going to buy it. Okay, I'm never going to pass it on. Seriously, get to grips with this. And also advertising hairdressing services to me is a waste of space as well. But the key thing is so many people get this wrong, including big businesses. All right. And the final one is, once you've worked out your audience, once you've worked out what you're going to say to them, work out your channels. And if you get all of these things lined up, I promise you your marketing will be far more successful than the average, which isn't very good at all. Okay. Simply because you worked out the key things that are going to make it work. And the cool thing is it's all trackable. Even if you spend money on print advertising, for example, or billboards, for example, you could have a little code on the advertising, say, quote this code for a special whatever, okay? Because then that that code will be only specific to that channel, and then you'll know that it's working. You can ask every single person who picks up the phone or sends you a message, what was the code? And some will remember, most will, I think, but the cool thing is it's trackable. If you're spending money on ads online, for example, it's all trackable, all the way through from advertising to website to sale, inquiry, what have you. It's all trackable. So there's no excuse for not knowing which bits of your audience, which bits of your marketing and your advertising are not working. No excuse whatsoever. Everything is trackable. And if it's not working, and if you start to put this tracking into effect and it's not working, then you need to go right back to the beginning. Think about your audience. Think about the broadcast that you're putting, or your boast, your brag you're putting in front of them. Think about the channels that you're using. Well, I hope you found that useful. Remember to ask questions if you have any. Like below. Click share it out far and wide if you know somebody who could probably do with this. But that's it. Check us out on www.aucklandbusinessbuilders.co.nz. The Auckland Marketing Club is here to help you if you do run a small Auckland business. But that's it. Thank you very much for tuning in, and bye for now.